treacherous frontier. These are the voyages of the channel Downsize It. Its continuing mission: to explore strange new genres, to seek out new games and new player communities, to boldly go where no nerd has gone before.
Greetings, my name is Ben, aka Downsize It, and today we're going to do the breakdown of the Vorcha class attack cruiser for the Klingons. This is the mainstay of the Klingon fleet, first introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation, and for the longest time were like the flagships of the Klingon fleet until the Negvar came around, but is also kind of the backbone. Not the most numerous ship, but the backbone of the Klingon fleet and the Klingon Empire, and it's going to be probably the primary player for the primary ship for Klingon players until the Negvar comes out. So let's check this thing out. So first off, and I didn't take a picture of this, but we'll start at the front of the card. But on the back of the card, important thing to note is one, that this ship is not a medium base ship; it's a large base ship. So that is a misprint, but you do have the large base plastic piece. So neither here nor there. And the size of the ship really doesn't matter. It's really just for like maneuvering, and also, for cloaking placement, it actually does kind of matter for proving position. But the key thing is that it's a support class, not a command class. And for now, this is the only option you have for like a bigger ship. But once a Negvar comes around for standard play, standard rules for the standard incident missions, you would be able to take a Negvar, a Vorcha, and a Brel. So Klingons can get some pretty hefty, beefy ships on the board. But anyway, just pointing that out, this is support, not a command. And definitely the attack side of support, for sure. An attack ship, not a science-based support like the Constellation is. And you also notice it costs 1 point to bring. Now, right now in the current set, it's counteracted by the Brel, which gives you a point back to bring it. So it basically equals out to 0 when you bring in a Vorcha and a Brel. But the Vorcha by itself costs you 1 point to bring. Alright, now let's start looking at the shipboard here, looking at all of its stats and stations. We'll start just the general and stations, then I'll go specifically into the whole crew values and then the alert stats, which I'm sure going to be interesting for a lot of folks as well. Okay, so for in the captain's chair, very basic, no real special abilities. It's like all the others, adjusting alert level by 1, or if it's a priority action taken by an officer, you can do by 2. Warp speed also the same. You need a social, you need a security, and an energy to engage in warp, or pay the leftover energies that you don't have the skills for. For the helm, this is where we get the cloaking. First I want to go over the impulse. The impulse is very similar to the Defiant, and this is where if you have the proper skills, security and technical, I should say warp is technical, I got the wrong, it's a tricorder. It costs you no energy to impulse. The only other ship like that is the Defiant. All other ships cost you at least 1 energy to impulse. But with the Vorcha and also with the Brel, so both Klingon ships, if you have the skills, you can engage in impulse without having to pay energy. That's actually pretty important. Alright, so now for cloaking. We'll start with the activate cloak first. You need 2 technical and 2 energy. So expensive to activate the cloak, especially if you don't have the skills. But this lets you to cloak the ship. And then as a reaction, at the start of the activation for the Vorcha, you can, as a reaction, decloak. If you didn't cloak this phase. So you can't cloak in the priority phase and then decloak again in the priority phase. But you could decloak as a standby action in the standby phase. Or, cloak in the standby phase. That'll cost you 4 because you won't be doing it with an officer. But then in the next turn during the priority phase, you could, as a reaction, then decloak. But that's just something to keep in mind, that you can't cloak and then decloak in the same phase. They have to be separate phases. That's one of the reasons why Tyrul's ability is actually really good for the Romulan/Federation at the moment. So there we go. Cloaking, that's the main thing for this ship, as far as special ability. Instruments, again, standard. There's nothing unique here, and also, like, the sensor ranges are also pretty standard. Nothing unique there. Let's skip tactical real quick. We'll get, because that's actually kind of the fun part. We'll do that last. Medical, again, standard. Nothing special here, and this is also where I think distinguishes it from not being a command ship. That's interesting. We see a difference between command ships and large ships that are support instead of command. Where you look at the Galaxy and the Dominion battlecruiser, you have additional special abilities that affect other ships, friendly or otherwise, on the bridge. And in the medical bay, both the Galaxy class and battlecruiser have special abilities in the med bay, and also being able to launch probes for the Galaxy class. But I think what distinguishes, I'm just guessing, this is our first example we have, is that a command ship has more alternative abilities to be able to affect your fleet as a whole, or affect the battlefield as a whole, as opposed to just a pure support ship. And this one, particularly a support attack ship. Cargo bay, standard, but also interesting. It can deploy the shuttles, the Tauron-class shuttles, so it comes with shuttle standard. You don't need to actually attach the upgrade to it. And then the engineering station is also standard. Nothing special there. Okay, let's look at tactical. It's weapon systems, and this is definitely a forward-facing ship. It needs to be facing towards its opponent to bring its weapons to bear. So it has first the heavy disruptor cannon, one of those. It's in the forward cone. That's what that symbol means. It's the cone out the front. And this is unique to the game so far, new to the game. All of its disruptor weapons, you have to have a minimum of 2 dice committed. So you have to commit 2 of your weapons power plus energy. You can't just do like a single dice attack. You're doing at least 2. And 2 to 5 for this one. Range 6. Blue dice. There was some speculation that the Klingons might have black dice, but no, it's just blue dice as normal. But it has lethal 1. So what lethal does is that if you do hull damage with the attack, you can spend 2 analysis to do an additional hull damage, which is actually pretty brutal, pretty lethal. So there we go. And then it has 2 disruptor cannon batteries, and those are in like the front left 90 degrees and the right 90 degrees, kind of like the Defiance pulse cannons. So if you have someone down the center line, you can line up both. 2 to 4 dice to commit it on this one. 4-inch range, lethal 1, but also pulse 1. So pulse lets you reroll dice, so you can reroll 1 dice when you attack with each disruptor bank. Then it has 3 torpedo tubes. This one I was actually kind of surprised by. So 1 aft, pretty standard, but 2 forward. And the reason why I'm surprised by this is because, and for those that might have the Vorcha class technical manual from the 90s, because I don't have mine anymore, I just have my Galaxy class one. What I liked about the Galaxy class with being able to fire 2 out the front from a single launcher is because the Galaxy class specifically has could fire multiple torpedoes at the same time out of that launcher. You can fire up to 10 torpedoes all at once in a spread. I don't remember that being the case with the Vorcha. It actually had a really slow fire rate out the front. The times that we saw it, would see it fire torpedoes. So, just a thing I find interesting. I'm not mad about it. Something that I find interesting, that you can actually fire 2 out the front. But what you're seeing here is the absolute immense amount of firepower that this ship can bring to bear in the front arc. If the Vorcha's got you lined up, and it's ready to shoot, and it has all the power and weapons power, reserve power ready, it can light somebody up. So, definitely an attack ship to its name. Okay, so, since we're talking about weapons, let's go ahead and go over the alert statuses, because this will tell you what you can fire and when and what your ratings are. apologize if these are a bit blurry, but you can get the gist. So green alert 1, you notice on the left-hand side there with the probe symbol, we now have, basically it's a D7 or a Katinga. That is the cloak ready symbol. So you're basically at both, you can only cloak in green alert status. That's what it is. But I didn't see anything in the rule saying that you can't change your alert status while cloaked. So I think it's possible that you cloak while like green alert 1 or 2, and then while you're cloaked, you can get yourself up to red alert 1, and then do reaction decloak, boom, and then hit somebody from cloak. Which is, I mean, those are cloaking at surprise attacks that both the Klingons and Romulans do. Not exactly technically accurate, because with the shield values, but hey, none of that matters. It's still a game. I'm not going to get too much into that. Not being able to have shields while cloaked, but whatever. Anyway, green alert 1. 1 reserve, 9 speed with 2 maneuver. That's actually pretty maneuverable. 1 weapons power, 2 instruments power, shields 1 fore, 1 aft. Then we have green alert 2. Also, still just 1 reserve, 7 speed. You're still only getting 1 weapons power, 3 instrument rating, and 2 shields up. I would say Green Alert 2 doesn't look that much better. I would say I kind of like Green Alert 1 better just for the speed. You're not getting much more benefits going to Green Alert 2, just to be honest. Other than it just gets you closer to your yellow and red alerts. Alright, then we have Yellow Alert 1. This is a really good, I think, like middle ground, like after you've cloaked, and just to like sit in station keeping, because you get 4 reserve power back, which is huge. Still speed 6. Not as maneuverable. 2 weapons power, 2 instruments rating, 2 shields front and back. Yellow Alert 2, a little bit better if you want to get, it slows you down a little bit more, less reserve power, but you have a little bit more weapons power, so you can still be good. But where you really want to be at, obviously, when you're ready to attack, I think Red Alert 1 is going to be a good sweet spot for you. Reserve power 2, 4 speed with 2 maneuverability, so you get your maneuverability back. 4 weapons power, 1 instrument rating, 4 shields on the front, 2 on the back. Again, this is a forward-facing ship, attacking forward. And then Red Alert 2, this is where you can bring all the weapons to bear, but no reserve power, no instrument power, speed 4, basically no maneuverability, but weapons 6. And then you remember you can double your weapons power with reserve power, so you can get 12 reserve power total on this ship to bring all those weapons to bear. And let's just bring up the main ship card again so we can just do the math. If you want to just ready to do your surprise attack decloak and just really lay into somebody, you can take a total of 12 power, and that means you can't bring all dice to bear out the front, but you could, let's see here, let's do some math. You could do 5 of the heavy disruptor cannon, 3 of each of the disruptor cannon batteries, and then 1 torpedo, or maybe take 1 less of the disruptor cannon and 2 torpedoes, but you could be slinging lots of dice with an alpha strike with this thing coming out of cloak at Red Alert 2. You'd then be left exposed because you're not getting reserve power back, unless you get someone in engineering to get you a couple. But pretty hefty attack potential on this ship. Alright, then let's go through just kind of like its whole statuses. So, starts at 7, at 6 you're still on the white, at 5 is when you go into the yellow and you take a damage card, then you take a crew hit, then at 2 is when you take another crew hit when you get into orange, and then another damage card, and then disabled and destroyed. Then your crew values, oh, I just closed it on myself. So crew values, you start with 4 command, 4 operation, 3 science. When you inspire, we'll go up first. You can actually get some pretty good science for this. That's not bad for Klingons. 444, then 454 as you go up. But then as you go down, science goes down pretty quick. Then everything else goes down, and then crew, basically 5 levels down is whenever you get disabled from your crew values, from your crew being killed, essentially. And then, yeah, core stats. 1 maneuverability, but 3 resilience on its armor, and maximum warp of 9, so pretty fast when you want it to be. You have to get a lot of breakthroughs to be able to do a damage card on this thing. But it's still a big ship, so easy to hit and only maneuverability. And then, the last thing we want to look at, let's look at the title for the Vorcha. Which is... Need to get there. Which is the IKS Bortas. The IKS Bortas costs 3 points. And its ability, it's attached to the command chair. So, it's when you're hailing, when an opposing unit at comms range of this ship opens and hail to another one of your units, you may have the ship answer the hail instead. So, kind of like, if I'm the Federation, I open up a hail with, like, whoever is leading the Burrell ship, the Bird of Prey, because they'll probably be easier for me to deal with or win the hailing than, let's say, Gowron. Gowron going to say, no, I'm going to answer this hail because then I want to steal tokens or whatever. Steal victory tokens. So, it's not a huge impactful thing, but it's one of those, if you really want to make sure that you've got the guy that you want on the Vorcha is the one that's going to be doing hails, you can put this title on your attack cruiser to make sure that Gowron is taking your hails, or whoever it is you want to take your hails is going to take the hails, regardless of what your opponent tries to do, as long as you keep your formation close. Okay, well, that is the Vorcha. Oh, that isn't the Vorcha. I'm sorry. I need to do damage. I forgot. We need to go over the damage deck, because that's kind of important to talk about. I was almost as sign us off. Alright, damage cards. So, let's go through the damage cards. So first, we've got Cloaking Disabled. So, if this damage card comes up, you take 2 peril. If it's cloaked, it decloaks, and the ship cannot cloak again. Some people might be wondering, well, how can you attack a ship that's cloaked? Well, you can't target a ship that's cloaked, but you can fire torpedoes in their direction, because firing a torpedo is not an attack. And then, when the torpedo gets to its level where it's going to remove its endurance token, you have to, and it's near the cloaking marker, the person that's cloaked has to prove that their ship is not in range of that torpedo. If they can't prove that, then they have to reveal the ship, the torpedo blows up, and they could be hit while the cloak is engaged. And then in the cargo bay, you can test Science/Mechanics to fix the cloak. I like this one, Command Challenge. This goes in the command chair, and it's so basically this happens on the Klingon ships where they think the captain's incompetent, and so challenge for command is happening. So they add 2 peril, and then if any opponent may spend 3 peril that's on the ship to inflict 1 damage on each personnel in the bridge. So basically a massive fight takes out on the bridge, which I think is hilarious. And then how you get rid of it is you actually have to fight for it. You have to defeat the challenger with the command plus skirmish test. And if you fail, more peril happens. So chaos can happen on the bridge if this damage card is drawn. Very thematic. I love it. Then we have exploding panels. This is the same as all the other exploding panels. Same there. Shields buckling. I believe this is unique to the Vorcha. The 4 aft can be assigned to any station. Reduce your reserve power by 2 to minimum of 0. The opponent gets to assign it. You treat your shield value of the section it's assigned to 2 fewer to a minimum of 0. So that's, oof. That's very, not good. And that could be a very bad one to get. And then Warp Core Breach. This is the same as all the other Warp Core Breaches. Obviously not one you want to see. Alright. Oh, and then lastly, I forgot, Weapons Unresponsive. So it's interesting that your weapons are not offline, they're just unresponsive. So you can still shoot, but just in the hazard phase, you have to remove any sensor locks you have on people. So that means that it'll be harder for torpedoes to be accurate, and you don't get the instrument rerolls from your attack rolls for having a sensor lock. Okay, now we're done with the Vorcha. So, I think very thematic. I think they hit it out of the park with the stats on this thing, and the theme of this thing, and the feel of it. It definitely feels like a Vorcha-class attack cruiser from the show. But also very narrowly focused. Support ship. It is an attack ship that needs to attack people in the front. Very narrow front. And not a huge amount of support abilities. It can launch a shuttle, great. Obviously, you can transport and stuff just like anybody else, but definitely a combat ship first and foremost. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Be on the lookout for my other ship breakdowns for Rising Tensions. And until next time, take it easy.